Hello and welcome to tonight's Board of Education meeting. Thank you for coming and for listening. For those of you who are online, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We begin with the approval of the minutes for meeting December 13, 2022. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Levitan, seconded by Ms. Falkove. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Dr. Rufo, please give us the treasurer's report.
Okay. The treasurer's report shows that the cash on hand for the month end November 30th, 2021 was $86,978,474.21. It shows bank balances for all cash accounts were reconciled to the book balances and were collateralized in accordance with the district's banking agreements and investment policy.
Thank you, Dr. Rufo. Are there any, may I have a motion first to accept the treasurer's report? Ms. Chang, seconded by Dr. Park. Are there any questions for Dr. Rufo? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Dr. Rogers, please, for the superintendent's report.
Thank you. And I'm going to go out of order on the agenda and ask Mr. Chris Ruffini if he would be so kind as to tell us a little bit about the developmental counseling program that we have at the high school. One of our primary goals is to prepare our students for life after they leave here and to maximize their potential and their opportunities in what's next. And we do that by supporting them in multiple ways through their journey here, their transition to the high school, the choices that they make while they're there, how we support them emotionally while they're there, and then how we help them navigate the college process, the college application process. And no one's better at it than Mr. Ruffini. So Chris, take it away.
Dr. Rogers. I'm Chris Ruffini. I'm one of the assistant principals at the high school. And I would like to thank Dr. Rogers' administration and the Board of Education for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight about our developmental school counseling program. What I also want to do is I've been with Syosset High School for 18 years now, 6 as a guidance counselor, 12 as an assistant principal. And I really want to thank the board for their support, for all of your support over the years. Because without you, we wouldn't be able to have the programs that we have to facilitate for our students. So thank you. And I'd also, before I get started, be remiss to start to talk about the work that has been put in for the 8th into 9th grade transition. I know the board has made this a priority, and we're really excited about the enhancements in the program that we have regarding 8th into 9th grade transition, and that's the myths for 8th grade parents and students regarding high school, of what to expect with social emotional learning and academic and their core courses, but then what those realities actually are in terms of working with the students. And I know that work within the middle school and the high school, middle school have been working together, has started and kicked off for 8th grade parents and students to talk about 9th grade courses, which is very, very exciting. And what we did, one of the enhancements that we've had is last week it was emailed out to all 8th grade parents, our interactive ebook that we have, which is just a wonderful, wonderful ebook where parents and students can go on, they can watch videos, they can learn prerequisites for courses, learn about different departments, and really get a real feel of what the high school is all about, with obviously at the same time speaking to everyone at the high school. So I really want to thank you for all that help with that work that's been going on. What I'm going to do today is I want to kind of paint a picture and a story almost of goals for each year in terms of 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade as a department that we look to do and look to take care of them by the time students move on to higher education. Because as you know with your students, it moves fast. Before you know it, they'll be seniors, they're graduating, they're off to college. So we really have a comprehensive developmental school counseling program that works each year to build on top of one another to help our students. But what I really want to talk about first is the large component of our program is working with parents as partners. All right, and there's a few programs up there on the screen that I'm going to talk about in a moment. But this is not limited to all the individual meetings that go on with our guidance counselors, all of the phone calls discussions, conversations to take the strength of all of our students and make them become the best that they can become in terms of students when they move on to higher education. But a lot of what we do in terms of extending the lines of communication is a lot of the programs and some of the stuff that I have up on the screen here, and working closely with parents in order to achieve these goals for our students. One of them is our PTSA Guidance Liaison meeting that we have. And the PTA has been absolutely incredible and supportive. As a guidance counselor, I've been part of these meetings where I've presented topics, and that's what we do in these PTSA Guidance Liaison meetings. We present guidance topics 4 times a year. And what's wonderful is we always have a great turnout with this, and we really get to discuss and talk about the programs that we have. And a lot of times what goes on in these meetings is they become conversations. And I'm very honored to work with a department that's creative and always looking at ways to move forward with the work that we have. And the great thing of working within these PTSA Guidance Liaison meetings, ideas do come up of programs that we have utilized and that we have put forward in the future. And they're just absolutely wonderful. Some of the enhancements that we have with this is now they're recorded. And we put them on the high school website. So parents and students, if they can't make it that morning, can go on the high school website and watch whatever the topic is at that particular time. And to take it back to the 8th to 9th grade transition that I was talking about, we have over the last 5 or 6 years or so, 8th grade parents have been coming to these meetings so they can get acclimated to our program, and that they can hear about the guidance program, what to expect the next 4 years in high school. And what's great is if they can't make it, it's not great if they can't make it, but what's wonderful is that it's online, that they can watch it and they can get an update of what's going on. We also have many evening guidance workshops. And again, following the developmental school counseling model, we have a workshop for each grade level. And ultimately the goal with that is to provide parents the opportunity to know the timeline, what to expect, what's going to happen in terms of scheduling, and all leading up to, like as Dr. Rogers mentioned, the time that they apply to college. We get this information out, it's in the calendar, but we also send it out in our guidance newsletter as well. And 9th to 12th grade parents get the guidance newsletter emailed to them. It updates them with our student support programs and anything that's going on in terms of programming, scheduling, college related, we send it out to them. But at the core of ultimately what we do is not working with parents and working with our students, I would say is Naviance Student. Every student has an account at Naviance Student, with Naviance Student. This is the welcome page when students sign in to Naviance Student. Students and parents have their own access codes. So as a parent, you can go in and see what your child is searching in terms of college search. You can look at what they're doing in terms of careers. And students, we always tell them, though, they should work on their own accounts, just because what's going to end up happening, this is the program we're going to use eventually to send and submit their transcripts off to college. Now, ultimately, each grade level has a different homepage, meaning the look is the same, but we provide updates, as you can see, updates for each grade level, important to-dos and tasks that they have, what's going on, programs that are coming up within each grade level, and news captions. But up at the top is the drop-down menu, and that's really where the students work and the parents go to look at the work that they're doing and the searches that they have. So what I circled up there, we have colleges where students can click on that link. They can look and search for different colleges. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit when we get to junior year. They can click onto the career tab where they can look at all the different careers and look at all the different potential majors and that lead to electives. I'm going to talk about that in a moment with our 9th and 10th grade program. And then self-discovery is really what the guidance counselors use when we're working with students to take interest inventory programs. So the first part, the story really begins in high school in 9th grade. And ultimately what we do with 9th grade is really where everything begins for them to help them transition to the high school. And that's academically, socially, but most importantly, be a part of the total school program. And what that means is getting them involved in extracurricular activities. This is what helps with social development, is going to different clubs, meeting new people. It could be athletics, maybe get involved in some community service-based clubs or community service-based organizations that we work with them with. And this really helps with their development and growth and their social emotional learning. Another thing we like to talk to them about is social pressures and the academic pressures that go on, that they'll be dealing with. This will go on the next few years, but really get that starting point freshman year to really work with them with this. regarding this. And we have our freshman groups, our grade 9 parent workshop. But the biggest thing with the academic pressures, which, and again, going back to 8th into 9th grade transition, that conversation happens as well, is that they don't have to overwhelm themselves by taking all honors, all AP courses, all college courses, all in 9th grade. That there are multiple on-ramps for students in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade to take advantage of the courses that we have. Take courses that best suit you to your strengths, and that's what we work with our students are when it comes to programming, which we at the high school will start that process in another month or so. But one of the biggest things that we utilize within Naviance is the AchieveWorks personality. This is through Naviance, and that leads right into what I was talking about with choosing electives. Now, with the AchieveWorks personality, this gives student information about your personality type, strengths, and potential career suggestions. So what will happen is the students will meet with counselors in groups. We usually do this after Thanksgiving. They meet with them in groups, and they'll be asked questions through Naviance of things they like or don't like, and they just simply yes or no. And what comes up is their personality types. What also comes up is learning styles, which helps with that development that I was talking about before. And they work with kids where the learning styles come up. Maybe they're a visual learner, a kinesthetic learner, and these are things that help them move forward with their studies as we move along. But the big piece of it also, it helps with personality types. So up here I have just an example of a personality type where this student's strength was communication, and it lists the different strengths, lists the different reasons why the strengths are in communication. That leads to links of different career suggestions and potential electives that they can take. So this is what we use when we sit with kids when we're working on deciding what electives to take, because a lot of students, they could come in and you meet with them and they know where they want business, they want technology, that's what they want to do. There's a lot of students who are unsure, and I always take it back to me. I remember in freshman year of high school, I really wanted to own a restaurant. That's what I wanted to do. Own an Italian restaurant, but knew nothing about why I wanted to own an Italian restaurant. I took a few business courses at school and realized that maybe this is not the path for me. And then I went in and I took a bunch of human ecology courses, education courses, and it led to where I am with my career. So that's what we want students to do. We want them to take as many elective opportunities as they can at our high school, because there's so many opportunities that they can take advantage of. Try it. If it's something that maybe you're not sure about or you're not interested in, try something else. And then we have another program that builds on top of that. And that's ultimately the goal of the department, is to get kids to try these different courses to see if it's something that they're interested in. 10th grade really just moves forward with the work that we're doing with them. We build on top of that 9th grade AchieveWorks profiler, but here we're really focusing on that academic profile and more of their interests. 10th grade's that big year where students are really, really, really honing in on those interests. And what we do with this career path is we have an interest profiler with them that we sit with them. We do this usually around December. It's called a career cluster. The career cluster is just, it continues upon the AchieveWorks profile that we utilized before. And what that does, it shows different career clusters and categories that break them down into jobs for them. So the students will be asked questions based on interest. Based on those interests, it will lead to what's on the screen here. It will show related occupations, related majors, related clusters and pathways for this particular student that after they filled out the interest inventory. Now, for this one particularly, it came out for me that it was education-based. It was being a school counselor. So what we do here with the students is we have them click and save onto their Naviance account that you can see as parents, and that will be on that student's homepage, a few related occupations, majors, clusters, and pathways. And what that does is they can look to see what programs are involved with these courses. What classes do they have to take if it's something they're interested in? And then we take it a step further to build upon is look at some of the schools and colleges that are offering these programs to kind of get them start looking at colleges and schools and to see beyond 11th and then 12th grade to see, okay, let's start that search process. And this perfectly builds to that, this career cluster program that we work with the students. And then 11th grade, ultimately, we call it the gateway to college, and really preparing students for that college search process. Obviously, we're still building upon that 9th, 10th grade. We're still working on social emotional learning. We're still working with students with academic choices, but really getting into a bigger picture of the college search process. So we have programs in place where we meet with students for our college planning workshops. We have our Naviance groups, and we have individual junior planning meetings where we're continuing that work with our students. But this is this page in Naviance, the college search, the Supermatch college search, is where we sit with students and they can really sit, and parents do this as well with students. Students do this on their own, where they can fill out all the categories here to select schools based on their interests, where they can break it up for if they want a large city, small city, what academics they want, student life, admissions, everything. They can break it up, and then it lists schools that they're interested in. We sit with schools if they have an IEP and they want to continue that, moving on to college, they want a comprehensive program, we can look at those colleges as well. So it gives students that kind of outlook in terms of what to expect with the college search. It also provides links for the college and to get an overview of the college on Naviance as well. The scattergram, though, for a particular school when you're looking at that's up here now, is my favorite part and the students' favorite part of this college selection process. And I know everyone's looking up here, they're like, Chris, why did you put a weather map up on the stage right now that's showing a thunderstorm coming through? But the reason why we utilize this, it's so helpful with giving students an idea of what to expect with admissions. Because this shows a particular school. It'll give the school's overview, its studies, its students' life, the costs. But the admissions piece is the most important. It has 5 years of Syosset High School students who have applied. There's no names. It's all GPA, SAT, or ACT that you can put in. What it doesn't have, it doesn't show what's a big part of the admissions process. It doesn't show the essay, what they looked at. It doesn't show the extracurricular activities. It doesn't have if they were a captain of mathletes, or if they were on an athletic team, or they were part of a lot of humanitarian efforts. It doesn't have that. But what it does show is the trends of that particular school. And that's what's very helpful when you're sitting with a student and you're working with them. They're like, hey, I'm interested in Adelphi. I'm interested in University of Rochester. We'll pull up the scattergrams to show where it is. Now, what this all means, this thunderstorm on the screen right here right now, there is a legend that unfortunately I couldn't get on the screen, but there is a legend that shows what each of these colors mean. The little circular blue dot in there is that particular student, his GPA or SAT, ACT score. And then all the green checks are all the students that were accepted, and then an X is students that were denied, an X usually with a square around it are students that were waitlisted. This is super helpful when we are working with kids, and counselors use this all the time to just give them kind of just an overview of what to expect for admissions for a particular school. What ultimately it all leads to, and we have a lot of evening programs, but I always call this college night our Super Bowl. College night's our big night. We usually have this at the end of April, and before the pandemic, we'd have 100 to 120 schools set up in the gym. But prior to that, to me, which is the meat and potatoes of the workshop, of the college night, is we would have an admissions panel of about 5 to 8 admissions reps from across the country, and a few of our guidance counselors would facilitate questions with those admissions reps. And they would ask them questions about trends, what they're looking for in admissions, what they want to see in a college essay. And it gave parents great context and perspective walking into the college night. And we also gave a handout of questions that they can ask. Now with the pandemic, what we've done the last couple of years, I have a shot of it up here. Last year it was virtual, where 2 of our guidance counselors, Ms. Waschitz and Ms. Krefitz, did a really phenomenal job of facilitating a conversation with 8 admissions reps from across the country. And what I love again about the department of them being so creative is updating the questions to reflect COVID through admissions and asking questions of how these schools are looking at applications of COVID through admissions. It's taped, it's online, so if anyone wants to watch it at any time, it's there and it's still relevant today. We're currently working on setting up the next admissions rep tape within the next couple of months in terms of finalizing it. And then obviously 12th grade is the transition to college. And again, building all on the social emotional learning that we have, the academic, the social pressures, all that stuff, individual counseling, all there. But ultimately what we're doing starting in August with our college boot camp for students, to our senior meetings, to our college planning workshops, college application workshops, really getting students prepared to sit down and when they apply to schools and really find the school that's the best fit for them, with them and the parents. And that's ultimately what we're doing, and then moving on to higher education and working with them with their courses, because senior year goes really, really fast. And it goes by before you know it, and they're moving on to college. So that's what the exciting part is, helping students navigate through that process, looking at their essays, working with them to get everything out and everything submitted. So that's a picture of our lovely guidance department. But what I do want to talk about for a second is talking about what we build upon each year, and that's what we do. However, the one thing I do want to talk about is we do have an amazing mental health team. Our school psychologists, our social workers, we have an MTSS process, multi-tiered services support, that Dr. Lamelza and our team has presented here before, that we work closely and individually with each student to get the best from them, to find their strengths, utilize those strengths, put them into courses that make them successful. And we have a really, really amazing team that I'm really proud of, and the building's really proud of. But to end with the guidance counselors, what the parents and students will have with each of the counselors that are up here on the screen that you see in the picture today are people that are very thoughtful, that are student advocates. They're your go-to when you're in high school. They'll give you advice, and of course, last but not least, they will give you guidance throughout the 4 years. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of our program. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ruffini, as someone who's now had one child go from 9 to 12, I just want to thank you and the guidance department, because the amount of programs that you've given over the years has been so helpful. The guidance team that I've worked with has been very responsive, but this adding links so that parents who work or don't have the opportunity to attend has been really incredibly helpful, not just for me, but for so many people. The fact that we are alerted to them, when they come out by email, and we get the links through there, has been an enormous help, and so I appreciate all that it takes to put that together.
Thank you.
Mr. Ruffini, thank you for that presentation. Very informative. I have a question about the scattergrams, and we have been wondering this for a couple of years. When there's a section in that site where students can self-report what the result of their individual applications were, whether they were accepted or rejected. Is that the data that is used to determine the scattergrams, or does the guidance department review that and put that in themselves?
In Naviance, you mean when you could put whether you're accepted or rejected, if that goes in? So it's that, but then we also go in based on the feedback we get from students, and then Naviance gets updated based on where they're going. Because there'd be some cases, I apologize, there'd be some cases where the scattergrams, the whole thing would be green and red. You wouldn't even be able to see it based on what it looks like.
Thank you so much for that presentation. It just gives overall picture of what we do, and I know you guys do an amazing job, so thank you. I have one question about using of the Naviance. I became aware of it when my oldest one was 11th grade. But from your presentation, it seems like Naviance is being used from 9th grade. So do children become familiar with it, or is just something that they use very few times that they don't know about it until 11th grade, where they all of a sudden start using it daily?
Great question. So yeah, it started, I'm going to go back to 12 years ago when we brought in Naviance. It was just for seniors, and then a few years after that, 11th. The last 5 years or so, it has been for the entire building for 9th graders. So what we do is at our freshman groups that we start right off in the beginning of the year, like 1 or 2 weeks into the year, we have the guidance counselors meet with freshmen. We talk about Naviance with them as well. And then 2 weeks after that, we have our grade 9 parent workshop. And within that grade 9 parent workshop, we review Naviance and some of what I discussed here. A couple of months after that, around Thanksgiving, give or take, not on, but after, we have our Achieve Works profile that I described that we have. It used to be called Do What You Are. Now it's called AchieveWorks personality profile, and we meet with them. So we have the opportunity right off the bat in the beginning of the year to review it with the students and the parents in terms of the program that they can go on. And then we usually use it as follow-up when the counselors are meeting with their students if they have to decide what electives they want. No problem.
So, Mr. Ruffini, thank you for that presentation and for all the work that you do that is described in that presentation. I do find it ironic that although you didn't become a restaurant owner, you are in an institution that serves 7,000 meals a week. So, irony aside, I would like to also just underscore something that you said earlier about the people who are on the screen. We talk about the importance of students having trusted adults in their lives who help them navigate, who help them when they feel challenges. And we know adolescence is a difficult time. They're navigating the transition from childhood to adulthood. And I can't think of a finer group of people to help kids navigate that than the group of people that you get to work with every day. So thank you and thank them for all that they do.
Thank you, everybody.
And so now we'll switch presentations for a couple of seconds and do a little bit of talking about where we are right now. As we're all aware, this has been a challenging couple of weeks in the pandemic. A lot of the margins that we operate under have been narrowed, and we have been our operational tempo has increased greatly because there are so many challenges that are under stress simultaneously to try to preserve what we're doing with in-person learning. But I will say that our priority is to maintain in-person learning. And it has been a challenge to do that because there are so many headwinds right now. And the community is up to date on those headwinds because we've been communicating with the community quite a bit in the last couple of weeks as we're navigating these challenges. We still have difficulties with finding sufficient bus drivers. The fall, we were able to hire more bus drivers, and I felt like we were at a place where there were enough people working. But now the problem is, of course, keeping them all healthy simultaneously. So we have seen the margins for substitute drivers get thinner and thinner, and I believe we are right on the edge right now. So for the next several days and maybe even a couple of weeks, we're going to have to watch that extremely closely on literally a daily basis. And unfortunately, because people do wake up and they find themselves sick, we will find out shortly after that, but it'll be early in the morning sometimes before we learn what difficulties we're going to have to navigate that day. So part of the reason for this, and I call this the entire pandemic in a single slide, it kind of illustrates where we are right now and where we've been over the course of the last 14 months. So the initial peak at the beginning of the chart to the left is the ancestral variant, the original variant of COVID, and that peak was about 117 cases per 100,000 people. That was the peak that occurred in early January of last year. So where we are in the current count of cases is about 4 times as high as we were then. So obviously the number of cases is concerning, but there are a lot of things about the situation now that are mitigating factors. Certainly we know a lot more about how to control transmission. We know more about what works and what is unnecessary. Certainly there are more treatments available, and the presence of vaccination has also led to less severe and less likelihood of transmission. So all of those things together certainly make this a different year than last year. But in terms of just the raw numbers of having people get sick and then they're unable to work or they're unable to come to school, we're at 4 times where we were last year. Over the course of the past literally handful of days, a line that was going essentially straight up just stopped and appears to be coming back down again. So This is similar to what the curve looked like in South Africa, very steep rise followed by a very steep drop. Obviously, though, we're a couple of days into the potential drop, and I don't think anyone wants to celebrate too soon. But it is the first hopeful piece of data that I've seen in weeks and weeks and weeks. And so I'm willing to celebrate it because I want to find something encouraging. And our hope is that this, even though the numbers of cases are still very high and hard to manage, that things will become better as the weeks go on. So we'll be watching this data closely to see where we get. The challenge that it presents for us is we have the same problem that hospitals are experiencing right now. We have an increasing number of patients, that is, kids who are sick, and a decreasing number of staff to serve them, that is, because our staff are getting sick. So we've had in place all through the fall a program that's different at the elementary, middle, and secondary and high school levels for how we would deal with students who were in quarantine instruction. But it involved a lot of individual contact with students and a lot of tutoring kinds of sessions, work that was done independently with support from staff that checked in. Unfortunately, particularly at the secondary level, so many staff are now in the position of having to cover absences that the workforce that was doing that work is finding itself spread thin and tied up with other responsibilities with in-person instruction at the same time that we've seen the number of students who are falling ill or who are quarantined because of close contact also shooting up. And there's certainly a relationship between the highest bar on the graph on January 3rd and the fact that the incubation period tends to be 3 to 4 days, and so that's 3 to 4 days after New Year's Eve. So we're certainly seeing a spike that is in all likelihood associated with New Year's Eve activities, and that spike has already started to diminish in the days since January 3rd, and that will certainly have an impact on reducing the number of students who are in quarantine or isolation as this, I don't know if it's a good analogy or not, but I use the analogy of a lump moving through a snake. So this one large group of kids is going to move through what was a 10-day quarantine process and exit it, and when that lump goes through, we'll be back to numbers that were more familiar in terms of these programs. So this chart was built before some late-breaking news today, so I'll just describe the chart and then I'll get into the news. With the students that we have in quarantine or isolation right now, you'll see as of tomorrow there will be a big drop in the number of students, followed by some additional drops 4 or 5 days out from there. So obviously more kids become identified every day and they add to these totals. But if we look at the students who are in quarantine right now, we do see that there's going to be a diminished number of students to serve, and we're hoping that we're going to see more of our staff recover and rejoin us to help serve them. So here's the late-breaking news for today, and this literally came half an hour before the board meeting started, so I've only had a chance to read through it once and summarize it, and if I've made an error on the slide, I apologize in advance. But the state just released rules on quarantine and isolation that reduce the length of quarantine or isolation to 5 days from 10 days. And obviously for isolated students, we use the term isolation to refer to students who are sick and are getting better, recovering. And quarantine is for students who are not sick, but were exposed and we're waiting to see if they become sick. In both of those situations, the state has reduced the time period to 5 days. So that will also dramatically reduce the number of students who need instruction outside of school. And we're waiting for some additional guidance from the state on how to implement this, whether it's implemented retroactively, for example. So until I have a little bit more detail about how we're supposed to implement this, I don't have a lot more to report on it. One wrinkle that did appear is that the state split the current rule, which says that if you are fully vaccinated and you're exposed but not sick, you don't have to quarantine. Now what they're saying is for in-school activities, going to class or riding the bus, that rule remains. But for after-school activities like clubs or the play or athletics, you would have to have a booster as well to avoid quarantine. So that is a change in the regulations. And again, what the regulations said is for students who are eligible. So obviously, students who are under the age of 12 would not be eligible for a booster. And also, there is a time interval from your second vaccination to when you're eligible for a booster. So I presume that what they mean by if eligible covers both of those circumstances. But at the end of the state guidance memo, they had a line, which I just repeated here, that said even more guidance is coming from the state on how to implement this. But I do see this as a dramatic turning point in how we approach students who have either been exposed or who have become ill as a result of COVID. And obviously, we'll know more in the next day or so, and we'll communicate to the community once we are able to convert this into something that is a little more understandable and that helps us explain to parents how we're going to implement it. And then I just wanted to pause for a minute and talk about our rapid test distribution process. We delivered over 4,600 tests in 3 days to our Syosset community. We thank everyone who was patient with us as we tried to balance the demand over the course of 3 days and not overwhelm ourselves. I also want to thank the tremendous number of people who offered to work a whole day on Sunday or 2 evenings this last week in the cold to get these tests out. We know that they're helpful to families, to parents, and we want to distribute the last handful to parents that are still interested, and then see if there are other ways that we can use the tests appropriately for our learning community. These tests are not as accurate as laboratory tests, so they can't be used for purposes like ending quarantine if someone is trying to rule out symptoms, but they are helpful in terms of giving you a sense if a high risk or an exposure event might have resulted in transmission. So, and the state has told us that they have an additional supply of these tests, actually different tests that have a June expiration date, and those tests are supposed to be getting here soon. So as soon as I have a little bit more detail about those tests, we'll I don't know how many exactly we're getting, so once we have a sense of when they're getting here and how many we're getting, we'll develop a plan for how to get those out to the community. So we recognize that our job is to do everything that we can to help our community get through these challenging times, and so we were happy to participate and happy to make sure that we got these out as quickly as we could once we received them.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Are there any questions from the board to Dr. Rogers with respect to his superintendent's report? Tom?
Thank you for your superintendent's report, Dr. Rogers. I just want to thank you and the staff, everybody who came to give out the test kits. There's just a Herculean effort that the school district and everyone associated with it puts in. I know everybody was there for a long day. They stayed at night. Charlie danced for us. But there's a lot of effort that goes into this. It's not easy to turn a battleship on a dime. So I want to thank you, your team, security, the custodians, Dr. Curry, everyone. They just do a tremendous job. As the board, we're very grateful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll begin audience to the public. And just to go over a few rules, you will see, excuse me, a ledger at the podium. You need to be a resident in order to make a statement or ask a question of the board. And so when you get up there, please announce your name and your address clearly, and please write it in a ledger. That way, if we need to follow up with you for any reason, we have the ability to do that. You'll have an initial 4 minutes to make your statement or ask your question, and then we'll ask you to be seated so that other people can ask their questions or make their statements. And once That first round, everyone has had a chance to ask questions. We will endeavor to answer as many of them as we can. If time permits, and you want to follow up with another question, you can feel free to come back up for a second 4 minutes. And again, once we close audience to the public, we'll try to answer those questions as well. We will not talk about specific staff members, and we will not talk about students. We have privacy laws that we have to protect, and students and staff obviously as well. And so we will stop you if you are going to speak about any individual. And with that, please come up to the podium if you have any questions.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Rogliano. I'm a mother of 2 children at Bayless Elementary. First, I want to say thank you so much for the district for keeping the schools open during the past 2 years. Where many schools were virtual or hybrid last year, my children were in school every day, which we all can agree is the best place for our kids. And this year, they've made more progress where they can move around the school more, which we all appreciate. And we still have a lot of progress to make, but I think we could all agree that the more normal every day gets for them, the better we'll all be. The first topic I was going to talk about, it sounds like Dr. Rogers addressed in the recent updates, which was the quarantine guidelines. So if I'm understanding correctly, now if a child is unvaccinated, they would have to quarantine for 5 days if they're a close contact. But if they're unvaccinated, they would not have to quarantine. So as data shows, and the CDC states, no one of any vaccination status is safe from this infection of this new COVID variant. In addition, the latest data clearly tells us that a vaccinated individual can carry and pass this virus just as easily as an unvaccinated one. In light of this, with regard to the new guidelines, I think it should be the same for everybody. I don't think that we should have a difference between unvaccinated and vaccinated policies. It's not fair to the students. The second thing I was going to address was sorry, I don't know why I always sound so nervous when I talk.
You're okay. You're doing great.
Was the length of time that we have to quarantine, and I do think that 5 days is the right number. I'm happy to hear that we're going to move towards that. It's what the New York State Department of Health is recommending. It's what the CDC is recommending. So I'm happy to see that that's being addressed. But again, I don't think there should be any difference of time between the two. We're constantly reminded that the virus is not known to be spreading in the schools. That transmissions are occurring when the students are off premises. We subject our children every day to extensive safety protocols, and we're told it's working to keep everybody safe, and we're happy that it is. But safety measures by design are supposed to keep everyone safe. So they don't favor you if you're vaccinated or not. Another reason why the guidelines should be the same for everybody. In the meantime, it would be great if the district could do better at getting the children who are quarantined more learning support. I know you said that we're addressing staffing issues with that. If there's a way that the classes, we could plug in just virtually, just get a camera in the classroom, the kids know what time math is happening, they can plug in, they could just see the lesson. You know, personally, I'm a stay-at-home mom. For me, when my kids were quarantined, it was unaffected. I'm home with them, I can teach them, it's no problem. But not everybody works that way, you know? So for parents to come home from work and have the duty, especially for small children, to teach their children and learn the lessons themselves, I think it would behoove everybody. Even if we don't need extra staff for virtual teaching, I mean, just get a camera in those classrooms. A lot of other districts are doing it. It would really be helpful. And last, I just want to touch on one more point unrelated to quarantine. We need to get back to the days where our kids can experience parents visiting the schools and outside events. You know, the district managed a high school carnival, which is great, an offering of a high school play, but it's been almost 2 years since parents have been able to attend events like Field Day, Halloween parades, and events like that. You know, when it comes to sports like basketball, only one parent's allowed to attend. Some parents are working all week. They don't see their children all week. They want to, go to a game to see their kids. It's nice for the kids to be able to share that with them. You know, these are memories and memories and experiences that our children and families can't get back. You know, and also just, I think it creates a lack of community. Parents should be more familiar with the teachers that their children are spending so much time with. And, you know, children should be able to feel pride in showcasing their work and their talents to their parents. I think addressing this would go a really long way for a lot of people. So thank you so much for your time.
Is there anyone else who'd like to come up for audience to the public? Going once? Going twice? Okay, Dr. Rogers?
Ms. Rogliano, thank you for your comments and your kind words about our efforts to navigate these really challenging last 2 years. And I began writing you a lovely response to your email, which was also very kind, and then got wind from the state early this morning that we should anticipate some sort of new guidance coming out later today that was going to put whatever I wrote, make it out of date by the time I sent the email. So I will get back to you tomorrow on some of the specifics that you've raised, but with the guidance that came out, and it came out about 5:30 this evening, it's kind of turned a little bit of everything on its ear. But I'll try to go through your points in order. The one thing that we don't have discretion on is the ability to distinguish how we handle quarantine and isolation policy. So that's dictated to us from the state, and they give us these guidance memos that are fairly detailed, and then we follow through on those guidance memos. And part of that is they have the right to do that to us because they're the controlling entity. And if we were to stray from the guidance memos that are given to us, we expose ourselves to liability. So that's one of those places where we're not afforded the opportunity to exercise discretion. There are lots of places where we are, but that's one of the places where we're not. I do think that we have a little bit of work to do internally to figure out how to operationalize the 5-day quarantine. So what often happens is we calculate quarantines from the day that students exhibit symptoms, and often the test comes a day after that, and then the child is home, parent notifies us a day after that. So there may be a 2-day lag. So from the From the perspective of how we arrange quarantine instruction, a student may now be 2 days into their 5-day quarantine by the time we've really wrapped our arms around them. So I just think that's going to make it a little bit of a challenge for us to deal with. Not an insurmountable challenge, just something that we didn't think about because it wasn't on the table until today. What we did think about, and what the instructional team and the building principals worked on all weekend, was addressing the virtual instruction program for students who are in quarantine because of this surge that we saw on January 3rd and the loss of staff that we had because people are spread so thin covering all of the missing staff people who are recovering themselves. So at each of the 3 levels, that program is going to look different. Your children, I believe, are in elementary school, and there is a team of people right now who interact with the elementary school kids, and I believe we've tasked another 11 people to join that team and support them. So that will generate an awful lot more contact time with students so that we can help them navigate. The optimal thing for students in quarantine is to have individualized attention. The reason being, a student who's in isolation, and I use these 2 terms sometimes interchangeably, but they're not. A student in isolation is sick, and their primary job is to get better. And so what we don't want is for those students to spend 6 hours on Zoom when what they need to be doing is resting. But by having individualized contact, individualized support, we can meet them exactly where they are with whatever stamina they have based on how they've recovered from illness, and really support them so that they can transition back to the classroom. And now that the period of quarantine is going to be dramatically shortened, the amount of learning that could potentially be lost is going to be mitigated even more. So I think that with the resources that we put towards the program over the weekend, we put that amount of resources in there thinking that we were going to still have to deal with 10-day quarantine. So that may be a tremendous amount of resources for 5-day quarantine. Certainly, I agree with your point that we've worked really hard at trying to make schools a safe place. And the way I like to phrase that is, I want to make schools the most inhospitable environment the virus has ever seen. And you're absolutely right. That's true. Regardless of the vaccination status of anyone in this building, we're trying to make the building a safe place. And we're going to continue to do that. It's the thing that is within our control to do and we want to do. And then your final point about trying to get back to some sort of old normal, or maybe it's a new normal, I'm not sure yet. I know I'm tired of all of the constraints on school as a result of the pandemic. I can't wait for this to be over. And I know that the team that I work with on a daily basis feels the same way. And I can only imagine how much our students want to get back to, for those who remember school before COVID, older students, how much they must want to get back to that. I think we all want to get back to that. I will confess, it is hard for me to imagine it right now, just given the daily struggles that we're dealing with because of this current surge. But I felt like in the summer and fall of 21 that maybe we were starting to get to a place where we were turning the corner. I'm hoping that by the time we get into the better weather months again this year, we'll feel that way again, and we might also have some optimism that there won't be another surge to deal with like we had this year. But I think I look forward to the conversation about how we rebuild the kinds of things that we all really like and appreciate and love about school, and how school ends up being the heart of the community. So that's an optimistic task to put on our plate, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have any follow-up questions, Ms. Rutigliano? Oh, up here. Thanks.
To understand how the process works, when you say that the state kind of is in charge of, I guess, the guidelines and stuff, is that for us as a district? Is that the Nassau County Department of Health? Is that New York State Department of Health? Like, I'm just curious as to what organization kind of puts it forth for us to follow directly.
It's a good question, and from time to time we have to recruit our lawyers to help us sort it all out because in the end, the State Department of Health is the controlling entity, and then they delegate some decision-making to local departments of health. So they call it LHDs, local health departments. So in this particular case, if the state has a guidance memo and the guidance memo says this is how you do it, then that applies to everyone. So there are sometimes, and an example would be test to stay. So the state health department has said, we will permit statewide a test to stay program. So that would be an unvaccinated student would be able to just take a rapid test every morning and come to school even if they were exposed to COVID. But what the state said was, we're okay with test to stay, but the local county health department has to adopt it. So that's a situation where the state said we'll permit it, but only if the local health department permits it too. So now they've kind of delegated that decision to the local health department, and you wait to see what the local health department will do. So for that one in particular, Nassau County Health Department has not adopted test to stay yet. Suffolk County Health Department has adopted test to stay. The Westchester County Health Department has adopted test to stay. So it's a little bit of a patchwork across the state. But with the close contact quarantine guidance, that one's not a patchwork. That one's where they said, this is what it's going to be statewide. And then that's the guidance that they give us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate the dialogue and the responses, so thank you very much for your time.
You're more than welcome.
Okay, thank you. And that closes audience to the public. We have one discussion item today, and that is the rapid test distribution. And I really just wanted to take a few minutes. I didn't want to give it short shrift because that was an incredible amount of work that the district had to do. We got tests overnight. We had to develop a plan, and by we, I mean Dr. Theresa Curry did just an absolutely incredible job with almost 5,000 tests. It's not just about how we're going to distribute, it's where we're going to distribute. Do we have the space to distribute? Can we do it safely? how many kids are going to be in the building while we're distributing, and can we do that safely and let them exit the building? Do we have enough volunteers to help this go smoothly? How are we going to control traffic? I don't know if any of you had seen videos of other districts, but I had. And we saw backups and parents online for hours waiting for their test kits, and that just didn't happen here. And it was in large part due to Dr. Curry and our administrative team to develop such a plan that it was really seemed seamless, but it wasn't. To the grounds crew, to our volunteer staff, to our board members who volunteered as well. We were just, I don't know if anyone calculated it. It seemed like it was, maybe a couple of minutes per car, and they went through. And in, standing up in 5 hours of time in really cold weather, everybody had a smile. We had teachers being traffic controllers and administrators being traffic controllers, and it really warmed our hearts to be able to do something like this for the community, something that really meant a lot to them. But it was also incredibly heartwarming to see how the community responded. So to all of you out there who brought us hand warmers and brought us food and hot chocolate and coffee and smiled at us and said thank you, all of that went a long way. Spirits were really up. And something else that came out of this for me is this couldn't have been possible without the facility space to do it, and the efforts that we made with the high school and the front of the high school and the lot really helped us navigate this work that was unexpected. Through the pandemic, we've had a lot of unexpected work. People are doing jobs that they didn't train to do, but we're servicing a lot of people that we didn't anticipate servicing in ways that we didn't anticipate servicing. And so it just highlights the fact for me that when we have opportunities to improve our facilities, and we have the ability to improve facilities, and we have the ability to expand our facilities, it is just tremendously important, because we don't know what we don't know what's coming down the pike. And what we learned through this pandemic is that space is critical. So thank you to everybody who has had the vision to help us get through this pandemic, but this distribution was really, truly incredible, and that's all I wanted to say. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We will start with A items. A1 is the approval of staff changes. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Falcove, seconded by Mr. Rotolo. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? A2 is the approval of 2021-22 stipends and hourly rate activities. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Koshia, seconded by Mr. Gershon. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? A3 is the approval of acting elementary principal Kelly Morgan at Willits Elementary School. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Falco, seconded by Mr. Greco. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Morgan, are you here today? We just want to thank you for the bottom of our hearts to step in at this really difficult time, and we understand that you're hitting the ground running, and we just appreciate all of your efforts. So thank you, and lots of luck to you. B1 is the approval of the Committee on Special Education recommendations. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Koshia, seconded by Dr. Park. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B2 is the approval of the Committee on Preschool Special Education recommendations. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Falco, seconded by Mr. Greco. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B3 is the authorization for acceptance of undue burden independent evaluator hardship waiver. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Chang, seconded by Dr. Park. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B4 is the second reading of policies. Policy 1530, smoking and tobacco cannabis use on school premises. Policy 2400, Board of Education meetings, types, agendas, procedures, and minutes. Policy 2410, appointed board officers. Policy 2521, school board conferences, conventions, and workshops. Policy 4526, acceptable use policy. Policy 6900, disposal of broken, surplus, obsolete district property. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Ms. Levitan. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we do not have a C1 item for us tonight.
You do have a C1. You were just, one of the items was struck from C1. But you have the remaining
Okay, I
items.
asked that before. Okay. You want me to do it?
On your left. It's the left.
Are these two the only ones in it? Okay, so we are going to do C1, but we are not reviewing one of those items that were in the original agenda. So this one is for RCP Consultants, Inc. for the term June 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2022, and Hofstra University for the high school commencement exercise, June 22nd, 2022. May I have a motion to accept these? Ms. Koshia and Ms. Chang. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you, Dr. Rogers. C2 is the authorization for contracts for federal Part B funds. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Koshia, seconded by Ms. Chang. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C3 is the authorization for adjustments to budgetary reserves. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Ms. Levitan. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C4 is the approval of an award of bid to Long Island Roofing and Repairs Service Corp. for Southwoods Middle School. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Ms. Falcove. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C5 is the approval of student club charters. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Koshia, seconded by Dr. Park. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C6 is the authorization of the disposal of broken surplus and or obsolete equipment and or books. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Mr. Greco. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everyone. Motion to adjourn.